This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/hue for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code HUE at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant, and today we're coming to you from Wetzlar, Germany, the global headquarters for Leica Camera. I'm delighted to bring to you today Jesko van Unhausen, the Global Director, Product Division for Photo. Is that right? Did I get that right?
That was absolutely perfect.
I'm happy. Well, we have some special things going on here at Leica in October. But before we get into those things, it's very helpful for people to understand that Leica is more than about cameras. It is about the people. And you have a wonderful history, which is not atypical for Leica employees. Would you mind taking us through it all the way back to when you came on board? What is it, 16 years ago, something like that?
No, it's even longer. It's like 21 years. That's a very long history being in one company. As a young man, I was always interested in photography. My father brought me to photography. He is and was an enthusiastic hobby photographer. And I got a very early touch to Leica because he always used the Leica from his father. So I was always deeply into Leica, and because of that hobby in this time, I studied photographic engineering. So Leica was the perfect employer for me after I finished university. And that's how I stayed so long here, because I did a lot of different positions, a lot of different topics at Leica, so it never got boring.
So you really got to learn pretty much all of Leica.
Yes, absolutely. I started in quality management. I worked in engineering for digital imaging. I was a project manager, a technical project manager for the M9, for example. And for over 10 years, I worked in the product management department.
And for those of you who don't understand, could you tell us what product management means to you here at Leica?
To me, it means it's the most interesting and exciting position, because you're in between the customers and the marketing part of the company, like marketing and sales, and the engineering. So the product management team's responsibility is to ensure the success of our future products, meaning knowing what the customers expect from our products, translating this in requirements for the engineers, and make sure that the right product is coming out and that we market it in the right way.
And that you can do it in a repeatable way with a quality level and to a price point. So yeah, I agree with you. I think product management is where it's at. But now you recently changed titles. So tell us a little bit about your current role, please.
Well, yes, in my current role, I'm leading the department of the product management team. And so the product management team is responsible for the overall photo business in the company. So I moved after Stefan Daniel, who got a promotion to a new position. And as I worked in his team for over 10 years, I had the great honor to take over more responsibility in the team.
What cameras have you been intimately involved with? You mentioned the M9, but you've been here as some really interesting cameras have come out since then.
You know that we just launched the very successful Q3.
Q3, what's that?
I never heard about it.
Never heard of it. Not only did I never hear of it, but I never spent money to buy one. Yeah, Claudia's just off camera, guys, and she's going like this. She's got the headphones on, and her Q3 is right there. Tremendous success. Yes. Actually, we should say tremendous order backlog, too.
Did you hear about that? How can you know?
Because I tried to get a second one, and Leica said, no, we're not going to give one to you. I mean, we're not going to let you buy one because it wouldn't be fair. And I thought that was really lovely.
We get a lot of these questions, like, can you help me in getting one? But
Can you explain to folks why there is such a backlog? What is it about how the Q3 is produced, or your projections for it, that gets to this point?
It's not the first time we experience a great success on a Q camera. So even the first two generations were very successful. But the customers of the Q, they somehow built up in a very enthusiastic crowd, I would say. So the secret of the Q, or the secret of the success of the Q, might really be mouth-to-mouth marketing, I call it. Yes. Because once you start using a Q, you are really thrilled by the image look and by the performance of the camera, and that's something you talk about. So the more Qs are there in the market, the more known it's becoming.
Where are they actually manufactured?
They are here, manufactured here in Wetzlar.
Right here in Wetzlar. Guys, this is really interesting. We've toured the factory, and I can say with a certainty I've never quite had before that I understand why it takes so long for the demand to be met. Yes, you know the legendary Leica quality thing, but what you don't know, what you don't see, because we're not allowed to film back there, but we have toured back there, is not only what precision work is, but how it is anything but an assembly line. There are people, skilled people, who are putting these things together. When they're putting together an M lens, there are certain steps where half a dozen people will look just to make sure that the helical focusing is grit-free and smooth. I got to see that with Claudia.
Yes.
So, okay, yeah, congratulations on the Q3. But there are some other things that we want to talk about today. So guys, this is happening before the embargo lift. Of course, you won't see it until that time, but why don't you talk about the camera first? Bring us up to date. What's happening?
Yeah, so we will launch soon, or when your viewers see that video, it might be already launched. So our latest baby is a new M model. It's Leica M11-P.
All right. So what's the difference at a superficial level? What's the difference between the M11P and M11? I know the answer to this question, but still.
Yeah, many of your viewers might partly know the answer also in advance, because it's not the first P version of an M camera that we do launch. So there somehow might have been some expectations on that. But one part of a P camera is the unobtrusive look, because the camera has a different face. It doesn't show the red Leica logo, and it shows the classic Leica engraving on the top cover. So that's really an old tradition on PM cameras. So it's a very popular look and very important for many photographers that want to stay unobtrusive and not attract the attention of the subjects, of the people they take portraits of, for example, looking at the red dot, and maybe they just don't want to get into talk about the camera, just having something stealthy in their face while they take pictures.
Well, personally, I think every Leica made in Germany should have that lovely engraving, but okay, that's fine. I'll live with my M11 as it is. There are other things about this camera, though. It's not exactly just an M11 with some lipstick in the form of engraving, is it?
Right. Another tradition that we follow on the P versions of the digital M's always was to add some features in the direction of more performance and more professional needs. So this time we again were able to offer a display with a real sapphire glass on. So this makes the camera much more robust. You know from the watch industry that sapphire glass is the hardest material you can get, so close to the hardness of a diamond. So in terms of robustness, it's the highest level you can reach. So that's one thing that makes the camera more professional, more long-lasting. So you don't have to worry about scratches at all anymore. And there is the extended internal memory. So, you know, the M11 had 64 gigabyte of internal memory, and now we have 256 gigabyte.
Outstanding. That 60 megapixel sensor deserves it.
Really enough for more than one day intensive shooting. And the internal memory of the M11 is extremely fast, extremely reliable, and therefore we decided to extend this feature to 4 times the capacity.
Now, there is one more thing, isn't there?
Yeah, there is one more thing.
But I think in order to really get at this, we should talk to the guy who's really been on top of it. Would you agree?
Absolutely right. I have known you as somebody who's really interested in the thinking behind a feature and the philosophy. And if you want to get deep into that, that's the best way to talk to the product manager who has been working on that product extensively.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to hold that thought. I'll look over here and say, hold that thought, because there is another product, not in the M series, that I think you want to talk about today.
Yes, right. We also have a new lens for the SL system. That is the APO Summicron 21mm lens. And I have seen on your camera that you are a fan of the APO prime lenses for the SL system.
Yeah, Peter Carbe ruined me the last time I was in a conversation with him. I had to end up getting the 35. And he was sneaky. I said to him, so what's your favorite lens? And he goes, oh, I get in trouble every time I say that. I said, okay, I understand. If you could only have one lens, and I didn't even get to finish it, 35 APO, which is the most beautiful lens I have ever owned. Although I will say that the 90 APO blows my mind. Now, the 21 is an exceptionally difficult focal length. What were your design objectives for it, and what kind of performance do you think we'll get out of it?
We were really fighting hard to match the criteria of an APO lens as close as possible to really be able to call it an APO lens. And therefore we have found a extremely complex optical design consisting of, I think it's 14 lenses, including 3 aspherical lenses. So this kind of technology, using glass swords that are really hard to handle in the manufacturing and really expensive. And with the latest optical designing technologies, we made something possible that we have never thought of. So we came really close in the contrast to the targets of an APO lens. But
of course,
it's outstanding.
May I please see the lens? Do you have the lens?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, you're sneaky. You're sneaky. Okay.
Here it is.
Well, guys, you can argue that there's not much to see here because it looks exactly like the 35, the 50, and the 90. The weight, as always, is beautiful. The feel is exceptional. It's interesting that there was a design choice that you guys made back in the day to have no aperture ring. But I think on an SL2 or an SL2S, that's just beautiful. Thank you for letting me hold this.
I need to take it back. I'm sorry.
I have a feeling this is going to be a really expensive conversation for me.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. At the time of recording, I know the price hasn't been finalized. So by the time you guys see it, you'll know the price. I'll put that into the show notes down below. Jesko, it's been just great fun and a privilege, as always, to spend time with you. We're going to take a break now, guys, to bring Christoph in to talk about that one more thing. I'm really excited about this. But in the meantime, thank you.
Thank you.
Really great. Please meet Christoph Müller. I said that right.
Yes, you did.
I'm proud of myself for the smallest things. It's really kind of pathetic, but okay. And Christoph is the product manager for the M system. So, the one more thing, really, really interesting. Please tell us about it, and then we're going to have a very interesting discussion.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So, the one more thing is the new function Leica content credentials. And this is really exciting because it's so important, as we not only worked for it for 1.5 years or even longer. Basically, it's a first step towards more traceability and trustworthiness for digital image content.
So we're going to translate that for you guys, but I am more excited by this and more impressed by this than what the other elements of the M11-P are. As far as I know, Christoph, Leica is the first company to have a dedicated content authentication chip in the camera.
In a serious camera, you're right. So we will be the first manufacturer launching a product enabling this functionality.
Now, this comes from CAI, the Content Authentication Initiative. So do I understand this right, that you are working in partnership with Adobe?
Yes, you're absolutely right. So Adobe started this initiative in 2019 together with the New York Times and Twitter. And quite soon, a lot of others joined that initiative. So did Leica in 2022. And for the implementation, of course, we are working very closely with Adobe.
Can you talk to us a bit about the data and the basic method for guaranteeing what kind of information to prove its provenance or to prove its lack of provenance?
So the first step is to define a trusted entity. And the second is to implement this algorithm or this functionality, this signature, so the photographer can use it for every image taken. So that means for the M11-P, we have a chip inside. It's a chip to secure and to store the certification, the signature. So basically, it's a process of three things. The first one is to have the chip. The second is to get a signature or a certificate from a trusted entity. And the third one, of course, is the firmware of the camera to enable the storage of the certificate for every image into that chip and into the image.
What happens if someone takes that image and then manipulates it in post?
Then the certificate is gone. So, of course, you can modify the image. You can work with it as you're used to your workflow, but you have to take care that the certificate is kept. For this, you have to do some settings, some presettings in Adobe Photoshop, for example, and you have to get sure that the history is kept. And in that case, you still can see all the steps done to the content, to the image.
The post-processing, the edits.
Yes, sure. So every step like cropping, sharpening.
Generative AI.
For example, using additional assets, using other images to merge them with the final one. All this is kept in the history, in the manifest. And if you go to an open source tool like Verify, you can see all the history. And that's really terrific.
I am thrilled. I'm excited. I'm happy. And I'm pleased. I am pleased that Leica is the first company I know of who is doing this. This is very much in keeping, to my way of thinking, with what Leica stands for, integrity being a big part of that. But I'm also thrilled and happy because it is clear to me just how desperately we need this. We have seen not the fake news that people scream at whenever they see facts, but the fake news like political ads, which are using AI in video to fundamentally alter what's there. We are living at a point in time where, I'm just going to say this, dark forces are looking to undermine our willingness to trust anything. So this is a big honkin' deal, Christoph. And I am thrilled that you are leading the way in getting this out there.
We are as well. And it's not only about implementing just a technology, it's about a complete framework, right? To ensure that the photographer can maintain the digital rights and to maintain control over their artwork and stories.
I imagine that the first entities that would use this would be the news services.
I think so, you.
Can you explain to us the technical details of the implementation of content authentication in this M11-P?
I will at least give it a try. So,
Okay.
as already mentioned, there's a hardware chip, there's a software, of course, and a very interesting fact is that every camera going through the production line gets an individual certificate. This is provided by a trusted entity. In our case, it's the Bundesdruckerei, the Federal Printing Office might be the correct translation. And with this certificate, every single camera has a kind of an individual signature. And this signature is stored in the manifest, a so-called manifest. And it's not only about EXIF data, but it's a specific data stored at the image.
Let me ask a couple of questions about this. First, does the data that it is capable of capturing include location?
It's a good question. I think we are still working on it. Also, the timestamp is not included so far because it's a little tricky. In case we would like to add the time signature to the image or to the manifest, also the time information should come from a trusted entity. And that is not so easy.
How interesting. And yet that would be critical, would it not?
It would, and we are working on a technical solution.
Once that is implemented, does that mean that the photographer has any say over all this information? I mean, maybe a photographer doesn't want to share location data. If you're doing combat photography, for example, might it be a defensive weakness for that information to become available?
So regarding location information or a geotag, it's not available via the camera anyway. You have to provide it via your smartphone.
Via the Photos app in your case.
Exactly. And you can choose if you want to use this geotag information or not. So it's up to the photographer using the information and storing it to the manifest once it's available or not.
Is there more flexibility in what the photographer can turn on and turn off in the way of that manifest data set?
Basically, the functionality we currently implemented is only about using credentials on or off and having produced by and copyright information stored at the camera. That is also stored to the manifest, and basically that it is. I think the focus of using Leica credentials is more about the content, and of course we are thinking to improve what is in case the photographer would like to change some data, and that is an ongoing discussion with Adobe as well.
Well, brilliant first step.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you think would be appropriate to share with us about the actual technical, physical implementation of it? Or is that enough of a taste to get our audience interested?
I can just recommend to give it a try. Of course, you also have to think about your workflow, because you have to take care for some settings in Photoshop, for example, or Lightroom. And in case you want to use content credentials and you want to keep the credential through your complete workflow, it's not tricky, but you have to get used to it. It's not so complicated, and I think it will be more convenient step by step as we are continuously discussing with Adobe. They have a kind of a roadmap how to improve the complete workflow. So they already did. The first verify beta version was much less information as we see right now. So yeah, it's a process, and it's a first step. A start, an initial solution, but not the last one.
It's very interesting because at this initial stage, the key question for provenance is, do you trust this source or not? Exactly. That's really the implementation, this first crack out of the barrel. And that's actually very appropriate because as a species, we have to get better at doing our homework. We have to, in a sea of narrow casting, take it upon ourselves to research who it is we're watching, who it is we're listening to, who it is we're reading. And more information means more of an obligation on each of us. Christoph, great to see you again after 4 years. 4 years, I think it was, in New York. For Three Blind Men and an Elephant, I'm Hugh Brownstone. That's it. Guys, there's one more thing for us to share with you today. Would you like to tell us what is attached to that M11-P?
Yes, along with the launch of the M11-P, we will also launch a new lens. It's a 28mm 2.0. It's a Summicron lens. We already know that lens, but now we have an extended close focusing distance up to 0.4 meter.
So in this regard, it is a similar design objective as the re-released or updated 51.4 Summilux?
Absolutely, yes, you're right.
So same optical design. Are there any differences in coatings or lens element material?
As the predecessor was already on a very high level, there is no change on the optic design. The coatings are the same. The optical resolution is the same. But as already mentioned, we have a close focusing distance extended. We have the integrated lens hood. Also very nice, and the creative freedom is extended, so it's improved, and the usability of that lens is really nice.
It really is beautiful to look at on that body. Did I say this was going to cost me a lot of money? This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 6 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the conversation in the comment section below because this is an exceptional audience. If you'd like help with a portfolio review, gear selection, finding or honing your artistic voice, sign up for a one-on-one mentoring video call via Zoom at 3bmep.com/booking. Finally, please consider supporting our work by using the no-cost You affiliate links down below, sending us coffee money via PayPal, or most especially, joining us on Patreon, links down below as well. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.